Okay, we're going to move on to our third live speaker now. He's a key media player. He's the managing editor of the Manchester Evening News Media Group. He's a former executive producer and presenter on Granada Television. You may recognise him when he comes onto the stage. He is Eamonn O'Neal. Please welcome Eamonn.
Thank you very much indeed, and thanks for putting me on after someone who's just been talking about losers for 10 minutes. I'm delighted to be here. I'm not really sure why I'm here, because I don't really have an inspiring story, but I do have some key messages that I want you to take away, three of them really, I suppose. But when anybody stands on a stage and addresses an audience like yourself, you've got to be very careful that your brain and your mouth are in the same gear, they're synchronized, because you know what you want to say, but you don't always say it in the right way. And that's a perfect example this morning when I was getting ready to come out here to Fallybroom. And Sheila, my wife, said, "What would you like for breakfast, dear?" And what I wanted to say was, "I'll have a boiled egg and some soldiers and a nice cup of tea, please, darling." What I actually said to her was, "You've ruined my life, you misery." So the day got off to a very bad start. So I hope I can get my mind and mouth in gear. I am the managing editor of the MEN Media Group, and I'll come to that a little later on, because that's about newspapers and a little bit of television. All I want to do, though, is just give you a little canter through my career choices, and what Alan Button was just saying then is kind of apposite as well. But one of the main messages for today that I would like to offer you is, don't be afraid to take a chance. It's a very simple sentence, but it can be a very complicated concept to get your head around. Don't be afraid to take a chance as you go through life. And this is where the audience participation bit comes in today, because you've sat there and you've clapped and you've appreciated, but you've not actually said anything much. So I want you to remember this. Amateurs built the Ark and professionals built the Titanic. And every time I say, remember, you all say, amateurs built the Ark. I'll speak, got any English speakers in? Remember, amateurs built the Ark. That's it. Now, when we say amateurs, we don't mean people who don't know what they're doing necessarily. We mean people who are not necessarily doing things in a professional way or getting paid for it as yet. So I was brought up in Wythenshawe, which is a little fishing village just south of Manchester, which cleverly disguised itself as Europe's largest council estate for many years. And I was one of the eldest of 5 kids, mum and dad teachers. And I went to St. Peter's Primary School and had a great time there, I think. Can't really remember it, that, it was a long time ago. But on my very first day, I do remember this very clearly as an infant, rising 5, I went in, played with some plasticine, and was sick. Then came home for dinner, because we didn't have lunch in those days in Wythenshawe, we just had dinner. And then thought that was it. I thought, well, I was sick, but it wasn't that bad, to be honest, school. And then I didn't realise I had to go back that afternoon and the next day and every day until I was about 18. But I did, and I got through it. Then I went to St. Bede's College in Whalley Range. And God forgive me, I lied. I pretended I wanted to be a priest to make it easier to get in. Because if you said you wanted to be a priest, it didn't matter how clever you were. I didn't really want to be a priest, to be honest, although I had earlier in my life told my mum that I wouldn't mind being the Pope if that was all right. So I got to St. Bede's and I limped through every hurdle that school threw at me. It's like a hurdles race, really. You get to the finishing line, but you kind of knocked everything over on the way. And then I went to Christ College in Liverpool to study to be a teacher. And I don't know why I'm laughing, because it wasn't funny, but I went to... I couldn't decide whether to do sociology or drama. And when I went for my interview, the priest, funnily enough, who was in charge, the boss, he said, "You've got down sociology or drama, Eamonn." I said, "Yeah, well, I'm not sure, sociology, drama." And he said, "Do you know what sociology is?" I said, "No, not really." He said, "There's lots of maths in it." I said, "Well, I'll just do drama then. I'll just be a crisp packet for the next 4 years." So I did that. And then I became a teacher, which I suppose was inevitable. I went to a school in Stockport called St. Winifred's Primary School, which became famous for "There's no one quite like Grandma" in 1980. Unfortunately, you'll have heard this week through your local paper, the Macclesfield Express, that the choir is reforming and unfortunately releasing it all over again. Notwithstanding that, I applied for a headship when I was 31, and this was a moment of epiphany really for me. It was like the road to Damascus. I didn't get the job, but before I went into the interview, I thought, if I get this job, I could be a headmaster for 30 years. No offence. I thought, oh my goodness, I can't stand the thought of that. I'm going to have to take a chance. So I went straight back to the school I was working in and handed my notice in. I'd always walked around Manchester and I'd seen the big Granada sign. You can't see it now because everything's built up. And I always said to myself, I would love to work at Granada. And I used to stalk people. I used to actually, you know, like the people with anoraks and green pencils who want your autograph when you come out. Well, not mine, but actors. I was like one of those people. I went, excuse me, do you work there? Excuse me, can you get me a meeting with somebody? Anyway, you know, it wasn't very, I was a deputy head at the time, so it wasn't very distinguished way to behave. But I didn't get anywhere. And then I saw an advert for a producer in the local radio station, Radio Manchester. And like Sissy earlier, well, we didn't have email then, but I bombarded them with letters. I sent a message in a bottle. I sent like a ransom note. I got a local singer-songwriter to write a song about me getting this job and sent it in. It was bizarre, but it got me through the door. And I had an interview, and they were very impressed with my diligence, my imagination and creativity, and they gave the job to somebody else. So I went back to teaching. But they did phone up and say, do you want to come and help out in your spare time? Well, I was the 30-year-old T-boy, and it was very embarrassing, but I had a great time. And I was there, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But I always remembered that and I was one of the amateurs. So I started building that little ark. And then eventually I was offered a full-time job, which I did. And I just got settled there. And then I got a call from Granada saying, actually, we have got a job now if you want to come down and do that. So I went and did that for a while. Television is full of acronyms, I suppose any job is. And I was a presenter, and I went on my first filming day. And it was in the winter, and we were going up to the high hills to sled down. And the director said to me, we'll just do your PTC first. And I said, fair enough. I thought, oh my God, I don't even know what that means. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I remembered. I told you it wouldn't work. So I asked them what it meant, and it meant piece to camera. But the point was, I was new to it all, and I was learning as I went along. And I stayed there for a number of years. I'm spooling forward because that clock that the head told you about is down to 6 minutes now. I've not even started. And in 2005, I left Granada and set up a production company with my stepson, who's an actor, Chris Bisson. And he's just started in Emmerdale. You know the two, do you watch Emmerdale? Yeah. You know the new, thank you Susan, the new family, the new brothers, running the, hello? Yeah. Thank you, he's one of them. And previously in Coronation Street and East is East and Shameless. Anyway, we ran a production company together. And to be honest, we didn't know what we were doing. We eventually became very successful in our own little world. But we weren't making the X Factor, we weren't making Britain's Got Talent, we weren't making anything big. We were making small documentary series for ITV about canals and about various other things. We didn't know what we were doing. But because amateurs built the Ark, and I'm doing it for you now because I haven't got time, professionals built Titanic, we just carried on through. And we eventually made a documentary for Channel 5 called, it was An Extraordinary People, and it was called A Woman with Giant Legs, and it was about this poor lady who's a unique condition in the world. And it became a massive documentary. It was a ratings winner, and it won awards, and well, it actually didn't win awards, but it sounds good. And it was played at a documentary in Sheffield, and we thought that was great. But we made no money on it. And then Chris got offered the job at Emmerdale, and I got offered a job at the Manchester Evening News Group. I know I'm talking about myself a lot, but I hope you're getting the sense that you have to make decisions and you have to take a chance. I left teaching. I had a secure job that I could have been still there doing for life, but I left to go on a 10-week contract to the BBC radio station. Then I got a staff job there, and I left that to go on a 12-week contract at Granada. Then I left a secure management position at Granada to start up a production company, you know, during this really bad time. And then we had to stop that. So we started again. Chris went off into Emmerdale, and I went to the Eamonn Media Group. And here I was now, having been a broadcast journalist all my broadcasting career, working in print mainly. The Eamonn Media Group has the Manchester Evening News, unsurprisingly, 22 weekly papers, including the Macclesfield Express, and I keep pointing down there when I say that because, oh, they've gone. There's John the photographer and Chris the reporter. No, they are here, they're still here, only because I am. The Macclesfield Express, 22 weekly papers and Channel M, the television station. So I understood about the broadcast side, but I didn't really understand the mechanics of print. So I put my shoulders back and smiled a lot and just yes and no and well, we'll discuss that later. Because I really didn't know what I was doing at first in that context of print. But because Amateurs built the Ark and I just went through it. And you've got to adapt as you go through your careers, ladies and gentlemen. You might now think, I want to be a professional musician, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a sociologist, I want to be a social worker, I want to work in the building trade. Whatever it is you think you want to do now, you have to remain positive and open to the chances that will come your way. If you're going down that road and there is a fork, then you might want to take it. And it is, in my opinion, well worth the risk. And grasp every opportunity that you possibly can. Even if it's an unusual one, or it's not what you wanted. The other day I was driving through Stockport in this rickety old car I've got, and it broke down, unusually. And I was on the side of the road, thinking, what am I going to do? The car came past and I flagged him down. I said, please, can you help? My car's broken down. He said, oh, no, I'm not a mechanic, mate. I can't help you. I said, I'm a chiropodist. Well, can you give us a tow? Didn't really happen, obviously. But if he was a chiropodist, and he could have given me a tow, we would have changed the circumstance to suit the position that we found ourselves in. So, the message is, amateurs built the Ark, professionals built the Titanic. Never be afraid to take a chance. And there is one more quote, which I'll leave you in a minute. But these are very important messages as well now. This sounds a bit soppy, to be honest. But you've got to look after the people around you, in your work, in your study, especially in your home life, especially your family. And I know this, it's my own fault, that my granddad, he only lived 2 streets away, and I could have gone round more. I could have done some shopping for him. I could have just sat with him when he was lonely. I could have done a little bit of DIY for him, and I didn't, I'm ashamed to say, and it's too late now. He's won the lottery. But it's my own fault. But the serious message is, try and do whatever it is you're doing with a smile on your face, however serious the job or the activity. Be kind to people, and that will come back to you in spades. And this is the most important, probably. Say thank you. You will always, always be remembered in whatever you do, wherever in the world you do it. You will be remembered by everybody if you say thank you. And the one quote with 26, 5, 4 seconds left comes from Mother Teresa, who is now dead and is a saint, but she knew her place in the world. And the quotation is that, yesterday is gone, tomorrow has not yet come, we have only today, so let us begin.
Thank you, Eamonn. That was funny and inspirational. I'm going to just take a minute with Eamonn here just to pick up some of the themes that we've heard about this morning, because Eamonn's in a unique position, isn't he, working at Granada and the MEN, but two monoliths of the media world. We heard earlier from Jacek about changing newspapers. This is a group of people who are going to go into a very different world than you went into.
Yeah.
What's the future for newspapers, TV, in the world of the internet and media that these people know?
Well, the biggest difference, I think, Peter, is that the way you consume your media is very different to the way we've grown up consuming it. Because we were ruled by schedules that someone else, perhaps in London, came up with. They decide when the TV programmes are on. They decide when the newspapers are printed and on the streets and so on. Whereas you, and I have, as well as Chris, I've got two other kids, and Kieran is 17, so he's the same age as you, he's year upper sixth, whatever year that is, and Laura's in GCSE year, so I'm familiar with, in fact, if I talk to them too quickly, they both start dancing. But what they do is they decide what information or entertainment they want, and they decide when they want it. And they will go to all the media that is they're available to them through the web, etc. And they will watch. Kieran has already watched every single episode of The Office and American Workplace before it's even on telly. That's just one example. Chris Morris, our reporter from the Macclesfield Express, he's a young journalist. It'd be interesting for you to, if you're interested in journalism, to grab Chris actually before you go, if he's still around, and John the photographer. Journalism has changed fundamentally. And the key thing is that the story is the most important thing of all. In our office in Manchester, we have all those 22 titles. We have the Manchester Evening News, and we have Channel M, and we have all the associated websites. And this story, for example, your success story today, Peter, that would be the story that arrives in our office today. The Macclesfield Express don't put their arms around it and say, we'll wait till next week's edition before we tell this story. It'll go up on a web, it may appear on Channel M tonight, it may be in the MEN tomorrow, and then the Macclesfield Express, or any combination of that. So the story and the content is key. And if you are interested in working in the media, the content provision is the most important thing. The mechanic of delivering the stories will change even before you get into the workplace, probably. So the stories, the content, and the gathering of that, and the protection of the story is the most important thing of all. And then everything else changes and you move with it if you can.
Fantastic. Good advice from Eamonn O'Neal. So thanks again.